Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rappaport in Residence, a dream of passion. My name is Errol Rappaport, and I am your host for this series of podcasts sponsored by the Daisy Jopling Music Mentoring Foundation. Daisy Jopling and the band just finished an incredible concert on Bannerman Island, and I have the pleasure of interviewing all the fabulous band members. So tonight, it's my honor to interview Jeff Miller, who is the featured pianist. However, I'm going to give you a little background on Jeff. Jeff is a Grammy award-winning keyboard player. He has played keyboards for many worldwide superstars, such as Bo Diddley, Jeffrey Osborne, Shirley Bassey, Vanessa Williams, Shakira, Lyle Jennings, and others. He also has toured the world and shared bills with Pete Townsend, Joni Mitchell, Willie Nelson, George Jones, Dwight Yoakam, NRBG, Reba McEntire, and the Rascal Flatts, and Taylor Swift. Wow. Some other highlights of Jeff's career are playing with Lionel Hampton in Carnegie Hall. Wow. Dreams Come True, Japanese pop megastars who have sold more than 50 million albums worldwide. Wow, legendary avant-garde jazz guitarist Sonny Sharrock, Universal recording artist Rashid, Mark Van Elm, Eric Reed, and K.J. Denhert. Some of Jeff's favorite venues that he has played at include Carnegie Hall, the Grand Ole Opry, the Fillmore West, Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas, CBGB's, Town Hall, New York City, the Channel Boston, and Irving Plaza, NYC. Wow, that is unbelievable, Jeff. Before I ask you some questions about you, I want to know how and when did you meet Daisy, and how did you get involved in the Daisy magic?
Okay, I met Daisy very recently, actually, just a few months ago. I knew of her being local, and we have a few connections. One is our engineer, Todd Jadis, is a good friend of mine, and we've worked together a fair bit. And he actually was my initial connection to her. She was looking for a pianist, and he had recommended me for the position. And I'm also a very good friend of her brother-in-law. We go way back, so there was a sort of a side connection there as well. And that's how we initially hooked up.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Jeff. What's your background? How did you get it started in music? When did you know you had a talent and a passion for playing music? You can start with that.
Okay, well, the talent and the passion, I've had a passion for a long time. I guess the talent is to be determined by the listener, but I started studying formally when I was 10 years old. I come from a pretty musical family. Not so much professionals in the direct family, but my father played drums and marimba, and my mother played some piano and sang, and used to sing on the radio when she was a child. She grew up in Washington, D.C. And I probably, like most kids growing up in that time period, I idolized mostly guitar players. I was a big Beatles fan, and I wanted to play guitar initially. I had an accident when I was 5 years old and lost part of a finger on my left hand. And because of that, my parents and potential teachers had thought maybe guitar wasn't the greatest thing because of that adjustment to my finger size, and thought it might be a little different. So I was steered in the direction of piano. And a little before I started studying, I'd learned a few pieces from my mother, who used to try to teach me some things. And that's kind of how I ended up playing piano. And then I studied locally. When I was in high school, I started with a teacher who really taught a bit of everything. So I'd studied some classical pop music, started getting into jazz a bit. And then when I was in high school, I sort of split off and started studying with a concert pianist who lived locally. And I was traveling into New York to study with an active jazz performer. and then I started getting more serious. Then I was very involved with the school music program. I got into all-state jazz ensemble. McDonald's had a McDonald's All-American Jazz Band that I had auditioned for and participated in high school, and then went off to music school after that.
Wow, interesting. So when did you realize that this is what you wanted to do? Play, do music for the rest of your life. Make that commitment, because you have to play your music, you have to raise a family, or be responsible, pay your bills.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I mean, I guess when I was in high school, I started taking it more seriously. When I started considering music school, I was looking at music programs that were just music. It was not the first choice of my parents for me to do that. My father comes from a military background. He was a West Point man, a lieutenant colonel. He's an engineer in the private sector after his military service, and felt that I should be taking more engineering classes and doing things like that. But I think once they realized that maybe my involvement was a little bit that I had a little more potential than the average kid my age to playing music, I guess they were always very supportive, but they always felt that I should have something else to fall back on and I should pursue other things as well. But once I got into high school and decided that a music program is what I wanted to do, they were supportive, and that's probably when I realized that's really what I wanted to pursue. Probably 11th, 12th grade, around that 16, 17-year-old.
And that's when you decided, when did you realize, that I'll ask you that question later. I got another question. The 72 steps is one of my questions. But when people say you have to pay your dues, what do you think they mean by that in life?
In life, or relating to music, or a combination?
I'll let you go with it.
Okay. Music, it's kind of funny. I think it's a little different now than it was when I was growing up. I mean, when I was a kid, paying your dues felt certainly like practicing, putting in your time, really studying and allocating a certain amount of time each day to the craft and really trying to pursue it. And, it definitely went through phases of being fun and enjoyable, and also being tedious and feeling like I wasn't getting anywhere, or it was work. And, a lot of my friends, especially when I'm 11, 12 years old, my friends are out playing outside, and, I wasn't allowed to go out until I spent, half an hour, 45 minutes at the piano, or whatever it was that my parents, felt felt justified they're spending that amount of money on lessons. But then I think, let's see, I'm getting a little sidetracked. Paying the dues, right? Sorry. And then as I got older, I think that sort of translated into playing a lot of venues and doing a lot of things that didn't necessarily immediately reward you financially.
Right.
There were certainly things that I did playing in bands and having original projects when I was younger that were very creatively fulfilling. But you'd play to a lot of empty halls. You'd work really hard to get people to try to show up, especially doing a lot of these gigs in New York City, playing the Bleecker Street, like the CBGB's type place, and then the Bleecker Street, Kenny's Castaways, Bitter End, those kind of clubs. A lot of times you were sort of expected to fill the place with your friends and family, and that was a lot of work. We spent a lot of time doing the marketing in those days, and of course we didn't have the social media and the reach that you have today, so it was a lot of phone calls and running around and driving into the city late at night and putting posters up all around the village and that kind of thing. And that really felt like paying the dues, as well as carting equipment, carrying all your gear around. And I had a lot of heavy gear as a keyboard player, going back 15, 20 years. And that was work.
Well, what's the difference? I'm still not sure. What's the difference between a keyboard and the piano?
Well, I guess, my function in Daisy's band has primarily been as a pianist, playing sounds that are piano oriented. Technically, the piano is the physical instrument with strings. Being a keyboardist tends to cover more ground. Organ, electric instruments, electric pianos, synthesizers, emulating string instruments, orchestral instruments. So being solely a pianist is pretty different from being a keyboardist in that sense.
So tell us about your experience on Bannerman Island, what this event was like.
That was really fantastic. I mean, I had been there once to tour when they first opened it up. So I saw it in a very raw, overgrown, jungly state where you really couldn't.
That's where you live up there.
Yeah, I do. Yep. So I had been there once before. But when I found out that this is what we were going to be doing, I was really excited to spend some more time there and to be able to explore. I'm fascinated by the history. And, the idea of doing something like this with the production being at the level that it was very appealing and very interesting to me. And a great way to meet everybody and meet this, gigantic team that was involved with putting this on. And just, it really couldn't have been a nicer experience, very honestly.
I want to know about the 72 steps.
Well, I guess that doesn't count. That was not the nicest part of the experience. 72 steps was the long road that we traveled from where the boat met the island to where we needed to get equipment to play. And it was a lot of lifting, and unfortunately I have heavier gear, so it was a lot of work to get things up there. But yeah, we made it. It was a good workout for the day. I felt it in my legs for a few days afterwards. And we're all good now.
Okay. Let's see. Where do you think the future of the music business is now, especially now that there's no, it's very hard to find a place to do a gig.
Yeah.
It's canceled now.
Yeah, that's a really tough one. I don't know. I mean, we're all in this real limbo period right now where we're allowed to do certain things in certain environments and we can't do others, certainly at least in New York. I don't know. I mean, the music business has evolved so much just in the relatively small period of time that, I've been involved. And some of the things we've considered blessings, like this social media, have all, in terms of being able to get our product out there, that's been great. But now we're at a point where I don't know if when we're going to be able to actively play in venues and what types of venues and what the restrictions might be on that. I mean, we do, especially now that we're entering into the cold season, our opportunities for playing outdoors are quite limited. So I really don't know how it's going to play out over the winter time. There's certainly, I would imagine there's opportunities maybe to travel to places where we can do these sort of things in our off season, where the climate's a little more friendly and maybe there's outdoor opportunities, in other areas of the world, in the country.
I know Sal told me he had a gig on Saturday night. He played in a parking lot.
Yeah, there's plenty of that where these venues or restaurants and clubs have sort of spilled out into whatever open space they have available. And I know of a few that are operating that way. I mean, this summer, most of my regular work has not happened, which is indoor work. I did manage to be able to do a few outdoor things like town concert in the park type environment where people were more spread out and there was an open band shell. But I'm not really sure where we're going to be. A lot of it's going to depend, I guess, on where we get with COVID and whether we have rapid testing or, vaccinations or, where we end up with that sort of stuff. I'm hoping that we'll turn the corner on that soon and we'll all be able to, get back to doing what we love to do. We shall see.
Okay, now I think I have two questions left here. My first question is, what advice would you give to a person starting out in the music world? However, I want to change that a little bit. What advice would you give to the parents that have a child that they want them to be in the music world? How do you teach them? How do you mentor them? Teach them like the foundation is doing. Mentor them to want to practice and want to study.
Yeah, I know for me when I was 10 years old, and my personality is very, as a little kid, I may seem pretty mellow and relaxed right now, but I was very active as a child and very, not very easily entertained. And I was very fortunate to have a teacher that was able to read that in me and be able to feed me what I needed to stay interested. I didn't want one of these old-fashioned sort of classical, wrap you on the fingers with.
Right.
So the teacher to me is a real critical part of it. For a young kid, I think being as involved as possible and just doing whatever you can and meeting people, and that continues on. I mean, it really is you have to take care of your own business first. You have to practice and work on your craft, but so much of it is connecting with other people that you want to play with musically. People that, my teachers always would tell me, try to be around people who are better than you at your craft. And I think that's one of the most useful things, because, the better the people are that you surround yourself, the more it's going to inspire you to better yourself and to grow and challenge you. Regarding the parents, I know it's hard for parents to be realistic about their expectations of their child. I mean, certainly to be encouraging, if they're able to recognize that this is something fruitful for their child, that, the child has some sort of aptitude or enough interest. There's a certain amount, I do believe there's a certain amount of music that's just within you, and there's certain things that just, if you don't have that within you, you're going to be limited. Not to say that there's not benefit and great things to learning music, but I do feel like there's a certain element that's a genetic thing, just like a great athlete or something, or mathematician. There's certain people that just have an aptitude for certain things. But I think for parents to be as encouraging as they can and try to involve their kids in programs that involve other kids and allow them to interact and interface with, as many people as possible that are trying to do what they want to do. I know my parents drove me around to a lot of band practices and a lot of theater things that I was involved in as a kid before I could do things on my own. And, I think that was very helpful to me.
They were very supportive.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I think the support is pretty critical. I mean, some people, if they have the drive to do it, they're going to do it regardless of what the outside influences are. But, certainly helps. I was very fortunate to have parents that did support what I was doing once they realized that I did have an aptitude. And I mean, they were always supportive of it, don't get me wrong, but they were more supportive and more encouraging as they realized that, I had potential to do things more than just entertain myself.
So is there any point where they said, and, seeing your career, where they say, oh, he's got it. Now, they take the credit for it, I'm sure, at a certain point.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were certain things that started happening when I was in high school that, that made them feel, I mean, I was very fortunate to have great teachers in my life. My high school band teachers were exceptional and were people who were plugged into actually working in the music business, aside from just, I don't want to say just, but aside from being teachers in a high school, they were also active performers and had histories. So they were encouraging. And I think when I started getting through these auditions and getting involved with All-State Jazz Band and McDonald's Band and doing some of these concert things and getting awards in high school, I think then my parents thought, okay, well, maybe it's not just us. Maybe there is something more and there's potential here. And I did, I had a scholarship to University of Miami where I had studied for a while. And
Right.
I think all that sort of came into play, and my parents became more supportive when they got confirmation from outside forces that, that this was possibly something good for me.
That's great. So what can I say, Jeff? It's been a pleasure talking to you. I found that, I hope everybody has enjoyed the lesson on life, what you're talking about, because to be and be able to be recognized and play and have the desire to keep playing and keep learning and growing. Because I listened to the music you gave me your site, which I'm going to ask you now, where people can reach you or find out more about you. It's just gratifying to see that enjoyment that you have to get better, and you're trying new things, and always, as an artist, it's not easy, is it?
No, and I think what you touched on there is important. The growth. You're never done. You're always studying. I'm not formally taking lessons now, but I take a lesson every time I put on a record, every time I hear music, every time I work with new people. To me, it's a constant study. I'm always trying to better my performance and my personal playing, as well as what I can gather from others. There's so many levels to it that I think the constant pursuit is what keeps us going. It really is. It's very fulfilling. We don't always get the accolades that we hope to get, but if you keep performing and pursuing your craft, the fulfillment that you get is really pretty unique and pretty special, I think. And it really gives you fuel to keep going.
Well, I mean, like my father used to say, work is work only when it's work.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Right?
Very true.
And, you have to practice and play, but that's not work. I mean, you're so lucky that you're not having to dig ditches or whatever, but you're now playing an instrument that you're learning from, and you can feel it. I mean, it's got to be a great thrill to keep doing that.
It certainly is. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to continually meet new people and share that experience. Performers, other players, as well as audiences. I mean, there really is all the work that you do at home in your house really, once you bring it out to people and you get feedback, and hopefully you bring some joy and share your experience with others, that really is what makes it worthwhile. That's
well, I know in interviewing, the band separately, everybody's had has a great respect for each person. Mm-hmm. And they love being in the Bannerman Island castle, and it was just a great experience. The pictures coming back are fantastic. We're going to be streaming this on November 13th, 14th, and 15th. November 13th, 14th, and 15th in different parts of the world. So you have to look. It'll be on the screen here what part of the country you're in, what part of the world you're in. I know Daisy has fans all over the world. She's toured all over the world. Evidently, you have too. So I want everybody to know this is, you can find out even more information if you go to DaisyJoplingFoundation.org. DaisyJoplingFoundation.org. That's where you can find out to get your tickets for the premiere of Illuminance, which is the name of the event. This series of podcasts is dedicated to Joe Brown. You unfortunately didn't get a chance to meet Joe, but he was wonderful, Daisy's late husband.
Yes.
He was just wonderful, and it was a pleasure to know. And his work is just going to go on and keep going now. My next interview will be with Levando Thomas, the bass player. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be next. Great. I want to leave everybody with this message. May you always have a dream of passion. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Errol. Appreciate your time.